So this is going to be another movie review. This one's called History of the World Part 1. I'm giving this 1 out of 5 stars. I should have known that was going to be a goofy movie by Mel Brooks. If it's got Dom DeLuise, you know it's going to be a real stinker. I'm not into this kind of slapstick humor, even though you couldn't make a movie like this nowadays with all the sexual male chauvinist jokes in there. You'd be labeled as a misogynist if you tried to make a movie like this today. So even though it's politically incorrect, I still only laughed one time during the Spanish Inquisition. Mel Brooks in his goofy Grand Inquisitor outfit. That was pretty good. But the rest of the movie stank. I didn't laugh at all. It's just goofy slapstick without the without the Three Stooges sound effects. Basically, what this is, and a lot of sex jokes and references to body parts and whatnot. History of the World Part 1 is a 1981 U.S. comedy film written, produced, and directed. Oh, and music by Mel Brooks. I forgot to put that in the description here. Oh, no, I did put music by, but I forgot to put RANT here. I hate this flag. The movie poster looks lame. The last review I did, the movie poster looked like Martin Cove in a Rambo outfit. Anyways, Brooks also stars in the film, playing 5 roles. Moses Copernicus, the stand-up philosopher, Tomas de Torquemada, King Louis the 16th, and Jacques Le Garçon de Pisse. The large ensemble cast also includes Sid Caesar, Shecky Green, Gregory Hines in his film debut, Charlie Callis, and Brooks regulars Ron Carey, Dom DeLuise, Madeline Kahn, Harvey Korman, Cloris Leachman, Andreas Voutsinas, and Spike Milligan. All right. The film also has cameo appearances by Royce D. Applegate, B. Arthur, Nigel Hawthorne, Hugh Hefner, John Hurt plays Jesus during the Last Supper, Phil Leeds, Barry Levinson, Jackie Mason, You're a Schmuck, Paul Mazurki, Andrew Sachs, and Henry Youngman, among others. Orson Welles narrates each story. Okay. Orson Welles is not dead yet, but 1981. When did Orson Welles die? Oh, he died in 1985. So Orson Welles died 4 years after he narrated this. All right. Despite carrying the numeration Part 1, there were originally no plans for a sequel. The title is a play on the history of the world by Sir Walter Raleigh, which was intended to be published in several volumes, but only the first was completed because Raleigh was arrested and executed in 1618. However, 4 decades later, Hulu announced the miniseries History of the World Part 2, which premiered on March 6, 2023. The film is a parody of the epic film genre, including the sword and sandal epic and the period costume drama subgenres. The four main segments consist of stories set during the Stone Age, the Roman Empire, the Spanish Inquisition, and the French Revolution. Other immediate skits include reenactments of the giving of the Ten Commandments and the Last Supper. Production companies Brooks Films, distributed by 20th Century Fox, release date June 12th, 1981. A runtime of a good 92 minutes. I couldn't take the torture. It seemed like much longer. The jokes were just falling flat. They need some Three Stooges sound effects in this one. For the slapstick, country United States, language English, budget $10 million, and a box office of $31.7 million. So it did pretty good in the box office. The Stone Age. Okay, the movie starts out before the Stone Age with some kind of a 2001 Space Odyssey spoof of a bunch of monkeys getting up and then lying back down again. I don't know what that was all about. Some stupid evolution crap from 2001, A Space Odyssey. Then we've got the caveman from supposedly 2 million years ago, who are, of course, cohabiting with a bunch of dinosaurs. Goofy. What a goofy Stone Age and more stupid evolution stuff. This is supposed to be Cro-Magnon period or something. I don't know. Caveman, including Sid Caesar, depict the invention of fire, the first artist, which in turn gives rise to the first critic who pisses on the caveman's artwork. The first marriages, heterosexual and then homosexual. Mel Brooks ahead of this time with gay marriage. Primitive weapons, particularly spears, and the first funerals, also depicted are early attempts at comedy and music by smashing each other's feet with rocks and thus creating an orchestra of howls. The Old Testament, Moses, Mel Brooks, comes down from Mount Sinai carrying 3 stone tablets, having received the law from God, the voice of an uncredited Carl Reiner. As Moses announces the giving of the law to the people, he accidentally drops one of the tablets, which shatters, and he corrects his proclamation from 15 commandments to 10. All right, the Roman Empire. This is a long one. The rest of these skits are pretty long. Stone Age and the 2001 A Space Odyssey spoof. They even have the music playing in the background from the movie. The classical record music. Da 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 da. You know what I'm talking about. Anyways, the first 3 skits are pretty quick. The next 3 are just boringly long. And the silly, stupid jokes are just like fart jokes and stuff like that. All right. Comicus Brooks is a stand-up philosopher dispensing wisdom in the style of stand-up comedian. He is notified by his agent Swiftus, played by Ron Carey, that he's landed a gig at Caesar's Palace. En route, he meets and he falls in love with Vestal Virgin named Miriam, played by Mary Margaret Humes. She was a third runner-up to 1975 Miss USA, and she won the Miss Florida USA pageant. She was mostly a television actress. Okay. Mel Brooks befriends an Ethiopian slave named Josephus, played by Gregory Hines in his film debut. Josephus is conscripted into the service of Empress Nympho, played by Madeline Kahn. A lot of good-looking women in this, showing off their you-know-whats. Madeline Kahn was in Young Frankenstein. Okay, Comicus performs for Emperor Nero, Dom DeLuise. I can't stand Dom DeLuise. Why is it in every single movie that he's in? This Dom DeLuise is the most unfunny comic that I've ever seen. He's just a fat slob. What is he doing on the screen? Emperor Nero unwisely joking about the emperor's weight and corruption. So Comicus is joking about the emperor's weight and grifting. Josephus absentmindedly pours a jug of wine into Nero's lap, and they are ordered to perform a gladiatorial fight to the death. They instead fight their way out of the palace, assisted by Miriam and Empress Nympho. Comicus, Josephus, and Swiftus briefly take refuge in Nympho's palace, posing as eunuch guards. When Josephus' visible arousal exposes them as impostors, they are chased by soldiers led by Marcus Vindictus, played by Shecky Green. They escape in a car pulled by a horse named Miracle, lighting a huge marijuana joint to put the pursuing soldiers into a stupor. So here's another thing. There's some cocaine and pot jokes in this one. They sail to Judea, where Comicus takes a job waiting tables, and Comicus blunders into a private room where Jesus is having the Last Supper and his disciples. Comicus interrupts Jesus, John Hurt, repeatedly using his name in the modern sense as an interjection. Leonardo da Vinci, played by Art Metrano, arrives to paint the group's portrait, directing them all to sit on the same side of the table, with Comicus behind Jesus, where his raised platter looks like a halo. There's nothing inherently heretical or offensive going on here, in my view. But the Spanish Inquisition, the two evolution things, are kind of dumb attacks on Catholicism, I think. The Spanish Inquisition segment parodies a grandiose, bustly Berkeley-style production consisting of an extra extended song and dance number featuring Brooks as the infamous Torquemada. This sequence opens with the herald introducing Torquemada and making a play on his name despite pleas for mercy from the condemned. You can't Torquemada anything, talk him out of anything. This is the funny part. I like how Mel Brooks plays on words here. That's the only part where I actually laughed. All right, instances of comical torture include auto da fe, a spinning Iron Maiden, and water torture reimagined with nuns performing as Esther Williams style aquatic ballet. This is the offensive part right here. Nuns jumping into the pool with their bathing suits. What the heck is going on? Why was that necessary? Is that supposed to be funny? Poking fun at nuns like that and their habits? Okay. Jackie Mason and Ronnie Graham supply cameos as Jewish torture victims. And again, Jackie Mason is making a joke about having his nuts squeezed or something. I don't know. The French Revolution in her Paris tavern, Madame Defarge, played by Cloris Leachman. A very comely looking Cloris Leachman incites a mob to plot the French Revolution. Meanwhile, King Louis of France, Brooks, is warned by his advisors, Count de Monet, played by Harvey Korman, and B. Mace, played by Andreas Voutsinas, who was in The Producers, that the peasants do not think he likes them, a suspicion reinforced by the king's use of peasants as targets in a game of skeet. A beautiful woman, Rose Marcel Rinbaud, played by Pamela Stephenson, another comely New Zealand born Australian and British actress. She moved to Australia in 1953. I'm going to look her up, see if she's in any nude scenes. All right. They ask King Louis to free her father, who has been imprisoned in the Bastille for 10 years, which he agrees to only if she will have sex with him that night. De Monet persuades King Louis to go into hiding and look-alike Jocks, also Brooks, whose job is to hold buckets for the aristocrats to urinate into, is chosen to impersonate the king as a decoy. That night, Rimbaud visits Jock, believing him to be Louis, to consummate the deal to free her father, but he pardons him without requiring sexual favors. After Rimbaud and her surreal father, Spike Milligan, return from prison, peasants burst into the room. The peasants take King Jacques to the guillotine. When Rimbaud exclaims that only a miracle can save them, Josephus, I don't want to spoil the ending here. I'll just end it there. Not that the ending makes any sense, but now at this point, the movie is poking fun at itself. All right. The end of the film presents a mock teaser trailer for History of the World Part 2. I guess I can spoil the ending because the true ending is previews of coming attractions. Josephus inexplicably arrives in the cart pulled by Miracle, and they escape, riding off toward a mountain carved with the words, "The End." um, so then you got previews of coming attractions, which never come into play. I'm not going to spoil that part, but the previews of coming attractions include Hitler on Ice and Jews in Space, a parody of Star Wars. That looks more interesting than the actual movie itself. None of this evolution stuff and Spanish Inquisitor, Grand Inquisitor nonsense. All right. Brooks recalled that the inspiration for the film came about from an incident in 1979. I was walking across the parking lot at 20th Century Fox on my way to my office when one of the grips who had worked on high anxiety shouted to me from the back of a moving truck. "Hey, Mel, what's next? Planning a big one?" From out of the blue, the biggest title I could think of popped into my mind. Yes, the biggest movie ever made is called History of the World. Someone else yelled, "How can you cover the whole world in one movie?" Maybe I'll call it History of the World Part 1. Richard Pryor was to play the role of Josephus, but 2 days before he was to shoot his part, he was hospitalized with serious burns in a much publicized incident. Brooks was about to write the part out when Madeline Kahn suggested Gregory Hines. John Cleese was originally scheduled to play Count de Monet, but due to scheduling conflicts, Harvey Korman was instead cast. Orson Welles was slated to do 5 days worth of voice recording sessions as the narrator, but he did his line in just a few hours. Comicus's arrival at Caesar's Palace was filmed at the Caesar's Palace Hotel in Las Vegas. One scene was removed from the final cut of the film that referred to the 3 Mile Island accident. "I had a father and a mother," Brooks said, "made up to look like half a dog and half a cat as a result of a nuclear meltdown, but the audience was seriously chilled and didn't laugh, so I left it out." The film holds an approval rating of 61% on Rotten Tomatoes based on 36 reviews. The site's consensus reads, "History of the World Part 1 may not have enough comedic inspiration to merit a Part 2, but the sporadic cleverness of these anachronistic skits are still a testament to Mel Brooks' gift of farce." Metacritic, which uses a weighted average, assigned the film a score of 47 out of 100 based on 9 critics, including mixed or average reviews. It was nominated for 1981, starring Bo Derek. I might have reviewed this already, or I might have it on my list. Let's see. I do have it on my list at 596 after RoboCop. All right. So I don't have to look that one up. The revised ballot, released in 2007, removed its Worst Picture nomination and instead nominated for Most Painful Funny Comedy, which it won. That's good. Most Painfully Unfunny Comedy. It also garnered a Worst Song nomination at the same ceremony for The Inquisition, lost to Baby Talk from Paternity. Paternity. Yeah. 1981. I'll have to look that one up. All right. Roger Ebert gave the film 2 stars out of 4 and described it as a rambling, undisciplined, sometimes embarrassing failure from one of the most gifted comic filmmakers around. What went wrong? Brooks never seems to have a clear idea of the rationale of this movie, so there's no confident narrative impetus to carry it along. Gene Siskel, however, gave it 3 stars out of 4 and said that even though the film borrows heavily from Brooks' previous work, it contains a bunch of solid laughs. I don't know about that. I only laughed one time throughout the whole movie. Janet Maslin of the New York Times wrote, there are loads of familiar funny gags in this film, but the movie is so sour that its humor is often undermined because so many of the jokes are either mean spirited or scatological or both. Pauline Kael of the New Yorker described the film as show business through the ages, and some of the routines are golden shtick. She was positive when she wrote, it's an all out assault on taste and taboo, and it made me laugh a lot. Variety called it a disappointingly uneven farce, which serves up a fair share of hearty laughs during its first half, but sputters out long before the close. Sheila Benson of the LA Times wrote, presumably everyone was so busy doing shtick and reacting off each other that there was no one left to mind the story and to say not funny. Not only not funny, but big overblown crashing bore, fellas. That's a good description. Okay, Gary Arnold of the Washington Post called it an entertaining mishmash of skits, which finds Mel Brooks back in lively form for better and for worse. To a considerable extent, the funny stuff works in a laughing in spite of yourself way. Leonard Maltin's film guide gave the movie 1.5 out of possible 4 stars and stated that the gags range from hilarious to hideous. After a while, there's no more momentum, and it all just lies there, despite the efforts of a large comic cast. The film opened in 484 theaters the same weekend as Raiders of the Lost Ark. I remember that weekend. There were long lines for Raiders of the Lost Ark. My parents took me to the movie theater in Cupertino. I distinctly remember that day. And Clash of the Titans, another blockbuster film. So History of the World Part 2 finished 4th for the weekend with a gross of 4.8 million. Not bad behind Raiders Clash and Cheech and Chong's Nice Dreams. With a per-screen average of $10,000, it was Brooks' highest opening on a per-screen basis. Despite the strong start, poor word of mouth impacted its box office. Although it grossed $31.7 million, it was considered a commercial disappointment because the film had been tracking well and Brooks's previous films had been so successful. So it wasn't a flop, but I guess they were expecting to make more money off of it. History of the World Part 1 was released on DVD. According to the MPAA, it was rated R for crude sexual humor, language, comic violence, sex and nudity, and drug use. There is no nudity in this. It's just a whole lot of white cleavage. In May 2010, it was released on Blu-ray. On October 18, 2001, Hulu and Searchlight Television, the TV division of 20th Century's sister studio, Searchlight Pictures, announced that a sequel variety series called History of the World Part 2 was in the works, with production beginning in spring 2022. Mel Brooks produced and wrote the series along with Wanda Sykes, Ike Barinholtz, and Nick Kroll, who also star. It premiered on March 6, 2023. So I'm up to review number 6 on this 3-day weekend. Wow, this is a popularity meter here. Okay, History of the World Part 1, 1981, rated R, 1 hour 2 minutes, sorry. It gets a 6.8 out of 10 on IMDb. 58,000 ratings. This is hugely popular. In terms of popularity, it's ranked 1,435 on IMDb, up 727. Mel Brooks brings his one-of-a-kind comic touch to the history of mankind, covering events from the Old Testament to the French Revolution in a series of episodic comedy vignettes. All right, here's a review from Charlie89. A little something to offend everyone is the title of the review on IMDb. Charlie89 writes on December 3rd, 1999. There's a little something to offend everyone in this hilarious history lesson with some personal research by Mel Brooks. To me, it's funnier than, say, Silent Movie or High Anxiety, but not as good as Blazing Saddles or maybe Young Frankenstein. My personal feeling is the History of the Part 1 succeeds as being so hilarious due to the fact that it is so incredibly crude. It's a miracle that it gets shown on TV, even in the censored version. I own the book written by Mel Brooks in 1981. It's a telling of the movie, complete with many photographs taken from the film. Sometimes I think that the film gets mean-spirited, and that is when it isn't funny anymore. Mel Brooks is the undisputed comedy genius of the latter half of this century. Without a doubt, he has made more people laugh than anyone else. His comedy is unique because while it is in bad taste, he somehow makes us feel good. Even in the first film, he makes us laugh at something in bad taste. This is where he is different from other run-of-the-mill comics like Adam Sandler or Eddie Murphy or SNL or anything like that, because Brooks really knows what is funny. From his earliest effort to his latest, he remains a genius. But as for History of the World, it seems to be his most popular movie with today's generation. Blazing Saddles is still popular, though, of course. The producers, the 12 Chair, Silent Movie, High Anxiety, To Be or Not to Be, and Life Stinks were all aimed at older audiences, as films like Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein, History of the World, Spaceballs, Robin Hood, Men in Tights, and Dracula Dead and Loving It will always be popular with younger audiences. All right. More like this. We've got High Anxiety, History of the World Part 2, Blazing Saddles, and Silent Movie. I'm not a huge Mel Brooks fan. I don't understand his comedy. It's pretty lowbrow, actually. Anyways, I only laughed one time in this movie. It's pretty goofy. Beforehand, it was agreed that Orson Welles would receive $5,000 per day in exchange for his services, figuring that he'd have to spend 5 8-hour days recording and re-recording these lines with Welles. Mel Brooks paid him $25,000 up front, But by noon of the first day, Wells had recorded his lines to perfection. OMG, I could have paid you $5,000, Brooks lamented. After kicking himself for a few minutes, the funny man asked Wells how he planned to spend the bounty. Cuban cigars and Cerverga caviar, Wells replied. In the beginning of the Roman Empire segment, one of the running jokes was the use of V in place of a U. It seems that great care was taken to do this on every sign, except the animal orgy sign, which has two U's on it that were not changed to V's. The annual orgy sign, why did I say animal? Except the annual orgy sign, which has two U's on it that were not changed to V's. U's are also visible on the equal opportunity employer sign on the unemployment office. The UV joke wasn't meant to go on forever. They used it in the first part of the segment. Then once the joke had run its course, they dropped it for the remainder. Moses is quoting as saying, the Lord Jehovah has given unto you these 15. He drops one of the tablets. Oi, 10 commandments for all to obey. Vestal virgins portrayed by Playboy playmates and models is in the crazy credits. The German TV version is missing the Hitler on Ice segment during the finale. Also, there, light of the movie right there. Also, there is a small bit missing in the Stone Age segment, showing the invention of art wall painting and the first critic taking a leak on the masterpiece. This was edited from the Vikings 1958. The soundtracks has the Inquisition music and lyrics by Mel Brooks and Ronnie Graham, which has to be one of the best music skits of all time, performed by Mel Brooks, Jackie Mason, and Ronnie Graham. Original music and lyrics, copyright 1981 Brooks Films Music Limited. I don't think I'll be getting the soundtrack to this movie anytime soon. Release date June 12th, 1981 in the US. Country of origin US. Languages English, Latin, French, also known as La Loca Historia del Mundo. Filming locations, Vaux les Vicomtes, Sienne et Marne, France. Production company Brooks Films. Budget of $11 million estimated. Opening weekend US and Canada. $4,792,731 on June 14th, 1981. I was probably at the Raiders of the Lost Ark premiere. Gross US, I miss those days, 1981, 1982. Anyways, gross US and Canada, $31,672,907, and gross worldwide, the same number, 31,672,907. I think the gross US and Canada should be lower because there's a Spanish version of this movie. And so it must have been international outside US and Canada, but it always has the same number for North America and worldwide here. The runtime is 1 hour, 32 minutes, 92 minutes. It's in color. The sound mix is mono, and the aspect ratio is 2.39 to 1. Now, going down my list, I've got, I was going to do 7 reviews today, but I got lazy with my nappy poos. Had to do laundry and get an early breakfast. Number one on the list is The Capture, 1950. Number two, The Trial, 1962. And number three, The Story of Father Capoon, 2016. So those are the next three on my list. I was my goal was 7 reviews on during this 3-day weekend, and I only did 6. So I'm a little behind here, but I'm hoping to catch up next weekend. I don't have anything going on. Hopefully, I can knock out 4 more this upcoming weekend, and that's my goal. Laters.